What made your military chaplain break character completely? Chaplain Father David was the most patient man I'd ever met. 30 years in the army, served with 3 different divisions, never lost his cool. Always calm, always wise, always ready with scripture and comfort. This guy counseled soldiers through divorce, death, combat stress, everything imaginable. I'd seen him hold dying Marines while mortars fell around us. Never even raised his voice. We were stationed at a forward operating base in Iraq, 2006. Small outpost, maybe 200 soldiers, surrounded by nothing but desert and people trying to kill us. Our unit had this private, Billy Walsh, from some backwoods town in Alabama. Kid was 19, barely literate, but worked harder than anyone. Sent every penny home to his sick mother. Billy got word his mom was dying. Cancer. Doctors said maybe 2 weeks left. Kid was devastated, crying like a baby, begging for emergency leave. Chain of command said no. We were short-staffed, mission critical, couldn't spare anyone. Standard army response, mission first, family second. Billy went to Chaplain David hoping for intervention. Father listened, nodded, said he'd see what he could do. Made some calls, pulled some strings, talked to every officer on base, nothing. Higher command wouldn't budge. Billy was stuck 7,000 miles from his dying mother. 3 days later, we got the Red Cross message. Billy's mom had passed away. Kid collapsed right there in the command tent. Heartbroken doesn't begin to describe it. That's when things got interesting. Billy asked Chaplain David to hold a memorial service. Simple request, nothing fancy, just a chance to say goodbye. Base commander said no. We don't have time for memorial services for people who weren't military personnel. It's not regulation. I watched Father David's face when he heard that. Something changed. Jaw tightened. Eyes went cold. 20 years of dealing with military bureaucracy finally hit its limit. "Excuse me, Colonel," he said, voice perfectly level. "Could you repeat that? I said we don't hold services for civilians. It's not appropriate use of military resources." Father David stood up slowly, removed his chaplain insignia, set it on the colonel's desk. "You know what, Colonel? You're absolutely right. This uniform represents serving God and country, but apparently you think those two things are mutually exclusive." Colonel started to interrupt. Father David held up his hand. "I'm not finished. That boy's mother raised her son to serve his country, worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table while her husband was deployed in Vietnam, sacrificed everything so Billy could have a better life." His voice was getting louder. Soldiers started gathering outside the tent. "She spent her last 2 weeks asking when her son was coming home, died holding a picture of him in his uniform, and you tell me she doesn't deserve 10 minutes of our time?" The colonel tried to pull rank. "Chaplain, you're out of line." "No, sir, you're out of line. And I'm not speaking as a chaplain anymore. I'm speaking as a human being who remembers what service actually means." Father David walked to the supply tent, grabbed a shovel, and started digging in the desert sand behind our chapel. "What are you doing?" the colonel demanded. "Digging a grave marker for Mrs. Walsh. Since you won't let us honor her properly, I'll do it myself. Off duty, out of uniform, as a private citizen." Word spread fast. Within an hour, half the base was out there helping dig. Soldiers, officers, even some of the contractors. Nobody said anything, just grabbed tools and started working. Colonel realized he was losing control of the situation, came out around sunset, found 200 soldiers building a memorial garden in the desert. Father David was leading them, still in civilian clothes, covered in sweat and sand. "This is highly irregular," the colonel muttered. "Yes, sir, it is," Father David replied. "But so is letting good people die alone while their children serve ungrateful commanders." The memorial service happened that night. Beautiful ceremony. Billy spoke about his mother, we sang hymns, Father David delivered a sermon that brought grown men to tears. Colonel attended, stood in the back, didn't say a word. Next week, new standing orders came down from brigade. Emergency leave policy revised. Family memorial services now authorized. Amazing how quickly regulations can change when embarrassing stories reach higher command. Father David never mentioned the incident again, put his chaplain insignia back on the next morning like nothing happened. But soldiers remembered. For the rest of deployment, whenever anyone had family problems, they knew exactly who to talk to. Not because he was a chaplain, but because he was a man who'd stand up to power when it mattered.